Okay, now let's talk about the ions. So what are ions? Ions are atoms that have charges. So when an atom is charged, we say it is an ion. So how do an atom tend to have a charge? So I have the structure of the atom here. As I've seen earlier, this is the electron, and then we have the proton inside the nucleus. So now these are the only two particles that have charge. We say the proton is positive and the electron is negative. So now these are the two charges we have. But in the course of chemistry, you find out that some atoms are positively charged while some atoms are negatively charged. We have said earlier that the number of proton always balances the numbers of electron. So now what happens? Now the proton is embedded inside the nucleus of the atom, while the electrons are the ones revolving around. And these electrons sometimes can be lost, and these electrons sometimes can be gained by the atom. So the atom has two things in common. It can lose, the electrons can be lost, and these electrons can be gained by this atom. So the atom tends to lose the electron, and sometimes it tends to gain an electron. And there are different kinds of atoms. Some atoms tend to lose while some other atoms tends to gain. So when the electron is lost, the number of the electron is not going to balance the number of proton again. Or when the atom tends to gain an electron into it, still the number of protons is not going to balance the number of electrons. So this could be either the proton being greater than the electron in the terms of loss, or the electrons being greater than the proton in the terms of gain. So whenever one of these occurs, the atoms now become charged. So when the atom is charged, we said it has formed an ion. So the name charged atom is what we refer to as the ion. When there is imbalance of the number of protons to the number of electrons, and this results as the electron being unstable. The electrons can always be lost, or the electrons can be gained. So we have two names for these ions. Now what happens if the electron is lost? If an atom loses an electron, let's say loss, if the atom loses an electron, the proton will be more than the electron. So because the proton is positive, the atom is going to be positively charged. So if the atom gains an electron, so the electrons will be more than the proton, so the atom tends to be negatively charged. So it is positive if you have more protons, and it is negative when you have more electrons. And the positively charged atoms are called cations, while the negatively charged atoms are called anions. So an atom can be positively charged if it loses an electron, and can be negatively charged if it gains an electron. Sorry for that. And an atom loses an electron, thereby making the proton more to become positively charged, and an atom gains an electron, making it rich in electrons to become negatively charged. And negatively charged atoms are anions, and the positively charged atoms are cations. As a result of loss or gain of this electron, reason being why you see sodium ion written like this, you see chlorine ion written like this, you see oxygen ion written like this, and you see magnesium ion written like this. You see aluminium ion written like this. Now those we see with plus are the positively charged ions, meaning those ones that have lost electrons, we call them cations. Those we see with negative signs, they have more electrons in them, that is why they are negative, we call them anion. So the ones that have more electrons, meaning they gain electron, we call them negatively charged atoms, which are anions, while those that have lost electrons are cations. So cations are formed when the atom loses electron, while anions are formed when the atom gains an electron. So which atom gains an electron and which atom loses an electron, and why? So to know which atom loses or which atom gains an electron has to go back to the valence electron. For instance, we explained earlier that sodium has electronic configuration of 281. Are we getting it now? So the valency of sodium is 1. Magnesium has 282 because it is number 12. The valency is 2. And then aluminium has 283. The valency is 3. So if an element has valence electron between 1, 2, 3, that valence electron will equal its charge. So now the valence electron will be the charge of the atom. Look at sodium. Sodium is written Na plus because it has just one valence electron. Magnesium is always written 2 plus, Mg2 plus, because it is going to lose 2 electrons. These elements are the ones that will lose their electrons. So if an element has valence electron or valency between 1, 2, 3, they tend to lose. So if an element has valence electron between 1, 2, or 3, they tend to lose the electrons. So because they are losing the electron, they become positively charged, as we've explained earlier. So a positive charge is formed when an atom tends to lose the electron. So which atom will lose electron? The atoms that are ready to lose their electrons are those atoms that have between 1, 2, 3 as their valency. So if they are losing it, it means you have more positive than negative, so they become positively charged. So sodium is going to be sodium plus because it is losing 1. Magnesium is going to be magnesium 2 plus because magnesium is losing 2. And then aluminium is going to be aluminium 3 plus because aluminium is losing 3 valence electron. Please note, the atoms that lose their electrons are those atoms that have valencies between 1, 2, 3. And because they are losing electrons, you have more protons in the atom. And because you have more protons, you have more positive charge. And because you have more positive charge, they are denoted as plus, 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 with the number of electrons being lost at the top of them. And mind you, we normally put the digits before the sign. So how do we identify those atoms that form the negatively charged atoms? That is the anions. There are those ones that have valence electron between 5, 6, or 7. In the case of nitrogen, in the case of oxygen, in the case of fluorine. For instance, oxygen, which is number 8, is going to be written as the configuration as 2, 6, meaning it has how many left to be 8? It has 2, meaning the valency here is 2 from 6, just like we've explained earlier. So oxygen, because oxygen will tend to gain 2 electrons. Now the valency is 2, like this, meaning from 6, which is what is left, as we've explained earlier. So the valency of oxygen is 2. Is telling us that oxygen is capable of accepting 2 more electrons. So because of that, oxygen ion is written as O2 minus. Are we getting it now? So in the case of fluorine, fluorine is going to be written like this. Fluorine is going to be number 9. It's going to be 2, 7. Fluorine, the valence electron is 7. The valency is equal to 1, as we explained earlier. So if we have the valency as 1, meaning fluorine tends to accept 1 more electron, it's going to be written as fluorine minus. Is that clear? So now those elements that have valence electron between 5, 6, 7 will tend to accept correspondingly 3, 2, 1 electrons. And for that reason, their charge will be written with the number of electrons they are willing to accept. While for the cations, they tend to lose electron between 1, 2, 3 also, and the number of charged is going to be indicated based on the number of electrons that they lost. In a nutshell, the cations are the positive ions, while the anions are the negative ions. So whenever you see an ion written with a positive charge, it means that ion is a cation. If you see an ion written with a negative charge, it means that ion is an anion. And the reason why they are that is because these ones are positive because they lost electron, thereby making the atom to be excessive in proton to make them positive, while these ones are anions. They have negative charge because they gain more electrons, making the electron to be more excessive than the proton, making them negatively charged. I hope that gives us an insight on what these ions stand for and how we'll be able to identify them and write the corresponding charges of the following of any element given to us.